I would have run to him, only I was a coward in the presence of such a mob. Would have embraced him, but that I did not know how he would receive me. So I did what moral cowardice and false pride suggested was the best thing. Walked deliberately to him, took off my hat, and said, Dr. Livingstone, I presume? Okay, you ready to do this? We're going to do our second episode.
Very nice, and it only took you 9 takes to get that paragraph down.
Yeah. Okay, so, obviously, the topic of our show
is it Dr. Livingstone? I mean, I presume.
Funny. Yes, it is, actually. Yeah. Okay, so, a lot of people our age. Now, I asked around to friends, like I always do, and asked if they knew this. I don't know that anybody really knew where this phrase came from, but the younger I went, like Ethan and Gabby, had no idea. Never heard that phrase before.
Right, but like old people don't know where it's from, but young people like Paul McCartney and other people don't even know it existed.
Paul McCartney?
Didn't you ever see that award show where he came out with some hip-hop artist and everyone's like, I don't know who that old guy is, but he's awesome. And all those people of our generation were just face-palming. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was seeing kids wearing t-shirts with Nirvana.
Right.
And they're like, why are you guys stealing our stuff? You know, and we're like,
He died a couple days before my 16th birthday.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I was in the school gym when he was announced that he passed away.
Yikes.
Anyway, we super digress on this one. Okay, so a lot of younger people don't know, have not even heard the phrase.
Right.
But people of our generation they've heard the phrase, but they don't know where it came from. So I got curious as to where this phrase came from and how I knew it existed. I remember seeing it on Sesame Street. Bert and Ernie went into the jungle, and Ernie was like, I have to find the doctor because I have an important question to ask him. So they find like a firefighter and a taxi driver, and finally they find a doctor, and Ernie goes, Dr. Livingstone, I presume? And he goes, yes. And then Bert goes, don't you have a question for him? And he goes, what's up, Doc? And then that's it. Where did you hear this phrase at?
Not Sesame Street. I don't know. Yeah, I just one of those things I'd heard people say. So I have no idea. I'm gonna learn a lot today, I think.
Okay, so you don't know where it came from either.
Africa.
Okay, yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
All right. So, quick note as we get started. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. Many of these things could be absolutely deserving of their entirely own podcast, but we don't have time for that. Like, we want to introduce people to kind of the topics, and then if you're interested, you can explore on your own, and maybe we'll make a podcast out of it.
I was going to say, if somebody's interested, shouldn't they email you or...
Well, yeah, if a lot of you are super interested, then let me know, and then maybe we can do some follow-up podcasts. But a lot of this stuff, if you're into this time period, you're going to be like, wow, you totally missed this whole thing. Yeah, I know, because if we did a podcast on every facet of this, we'd be here for the next 20 days. So we're just going to go, not quick. This may end up being a 2-parter. We'll see how long it takes. Okay. But the other thing that I want to caution you about, I guess there's 2 other things that I want to caution you about. If you hear rattlings going on, our son is away on a camping trip with his grandpa, which means he left us the puppy. So we have 2 studio dogs today, and one of them seems to be very loud.
I think that's the old studio dog that's making a noise, but go ahead.
Anyway, real caution, okay? Some of the things we're going to talk about today are very much not pleasant, including slavery and beating people to death. And
I think anytime we historically talk about the colonization and how many of the people treated Africa, it's usually just going to be kind of a bad deal.
Generally not great. So just so you guys kind of know, I listen to a lot of things. I researched a lot of websites, listened to a couple of other podcasts, but the 2 primary sources, just so you know, this one is one that I read. This is called Dark Safari, The Life Behind the Legend of Henry Morton Stanley. And it was by John Bierman.
He looks a little like Charlton Heston on the back of that.
Oh, he's the author. That's what he looks like. If you're watching on YouTube. Oh, we didn't even say. If you're watching on YouTube, awesome. Just know that we're also on Substack. If you're with us on Substack, also know that we are on YouTube. So you can get visual and audio, however you want.
Watch us talk with our hands.
Yeah. The other one is called Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Missionaries, Journalists, Explorers, and Empire. Like that. And it's by Clare Pettitt. So these were our two primary sources, though I used a lot of sources, which I will put out there, though I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that. I don't know if it's going to come
Show
out
notes.
show notes, but on Substack, I don't know if it's like in the newsletter part. I'm still messing with Substack to get my head around it.
But if you're watching on YouTube, we'll put it in the description of the episode.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
It will be around, I promise. I'm not into plagiarizing. So what we're going to do, the whole Dr. Livingstone, I presume, obviously he was talking to Dr. Livingstone, who was Dr. David Livingstone. And the guy doing the talking was Henry Morton Stanley. So we've got two main guys. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you about Dr. Livingstone first. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about Henry Morton Stanley. Then we're going to talk about how those two came together. And then we're going to kind of talk about what happened to each of them after.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And as always, I've done the research. You're here to ask the questions.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free to ask questions, and hopefully I know the answers to those. We're going to start with Dr. Livingstone, okay? Dr. David Livingstone was born in, and I hope I pronounce this right, Blantyre, Scotland, which is near Glasgow, on March 19th, 1813. Okay, he was born to mill workers and started working in the mill when he was 10.
Oh, okay.
Yay, fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so he went to school in the evenings, and in 1936 he started studying to be a medical doctor because he wanted to go do medical missionary work.
Okay.
Okay. By 1840 he was ready to go, and he joined the London Missionary Society and went to South Africa. All right, so he found it to be kind of difficult work because the African people weren't super interested in converting. I know, imagine that. So he was trying to get in the good graces. One of the themes in this whole story is it's like blatant racism, right? But then on the other hand, it's not. Like, they're doing something terribly racist, and then they're like best friends with these Africans, and you're like, what is happening? So it's very difficult.
So racism is okay as long as you're...
It's not okay.
All right.
It's just very difficult to pinpoint what they were really like, what was in their head. You know what I mean?
But isn't that kind of the story of racism in general? Is like somebody can have like a African American friend and still be like,
right?
Yeah. So is it kind of one, or is it
is
it kind of? And I don't mean to excuse them of the behavior, but is it one of those sort of signs of the time where rich Londoners, because I'm assuming that this is kind of a high society thing, just thought they were better, and they're like, oh, we're gonna do you a favor by imposing our culture on you, and then you'll be happier and sip tea with us or something like that, right?
I mean, I think that was some of it. And the books kept saying they weren't racist, that was just how it was back then, which I always think is kind of a dumb argument, because if I'm watching someone get beaten to death,
oh, it's that level of racism.
Yeah,
okay, that's not all right.
Yeah, they're a mishmash. So anyways.
What do you mean it's a mishmash? I think that's always wrong, honey.
No, that is always wrong.
We stand for that as part of our podcast?
Always wrong.
Okay.
I'm just saying, some of the other things they did were like, oh, well, that was really sweet. But anyways.
Okay,
so in 1844, this is something that would stick with Dr. Livingstone his whole rest of his life. Okay, in 1844... there is a lion that is harassing this village. And I've read different accounts, but basically what it seems like is this lion was stealing livestock. Doesn't seem like it had attacked people at this point.
Okay.
But Dr. Livingstone was like, I'm going to go shoot this lion and prove to these people how awesome we are. You know what I mean?
Guns are great.
Guns are awesome.
Okay, right.
And all the people in the village are like, you dumb. Just watching him that's not smart, man. So he goes out and he shoots the lion, but I guess he's got a shotgun and it has 2 shots. So he hits the lion both times, but the lion's amped up and comes after him, destroys his arm. They managed to reset it and put it back in place. But destroys his arm. And then 2 guys from the village come out and try and help. They both get terribly injured too. And finally, the lion like succumbs to its injuries and dies.
Okay, good. There's a happy ending to the story. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, Livingstone and his one gun and man are like, I'm gonna do this, and he ends up getting other people injured. But
like he had an assistant that also.
It wasn't an assistant. It was just random guys from the village that were like, God, this white guy needs help, man. Like, he's gonna get himself killed. But his arm never reset the right way. It gave him trouble the rest of his life. And to the point...
Is this play stupid games, win stupid prizes? Yeah. Kind of, all right, yeah.
But to the point, later on, when he did pass away and they had to identify his body, which is something we'll talk about later, why they had to do that, they used his arm as an identifying like feature, like, oh look, it's this terrible broken arm on his left side or whatever. Yep, that's him. And apparently they have casts of his arm. They had them made multiple, and one of them is still in the museum of like the Dr. Livingstone Birthplace Museum. You can see a cast of his arm, and it's terrible. It almost looks like one of the bones got like set on top of the other. It's not great.
So bring a larger rifle next time I go lion hunting. Okay, got it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in 1845, Livingstone married the daughter of the head missionary.
Is this with or without, like before the arm or after?
After.
Okay.
Arm was 1844. This is 1845.
Okay.
I tried to do this in order, though I'm sure that at some point
I'm not going to remember dates. I was an English major.
Okay, so he married Miss Mary Moffat, and they eventually had 6 kids, 5 that lived.
Did she sit on a tuffet?
No. Okay. So his first one was Robert. He was born in 1846. This man, as a woman, I just want to smack him and be like, what the heck, man? So he married this woman who, by all accounts, was a very strong woman, and she was already in Africa because she was the daughter of the head missionary, and she was kind of used to this life, right?
Okay, so she's kind of badass.
She is. But with 3 kids under 6 years old and a 4th kid on the way, he made them all travel 1,500 miles through the Kalahari Desert. After they returned, she had that baby who she was pregnant with, and big surprise, it died 2 weeks later because they were all half starved to death and had battled dysentery and malaria and everything on the way. This man, I'm telling you. Then he wanted to go on another trip, but
so why then? Why did they go across the desert? Like, was there a reason?
Oh, he was looking for new places to set up new missions. So then he wants to go again, but she's pregnant again. But he's like, no, you got to come with me again because the chief in this area knows your dad. And so if I bring you along, it's going to be good, that he gets to meet you and it'll start control. Conversations.
I presume Dr. Livingstone did not have good impulse control.
I don't know if it was impulse control or if he really wanted to do this, and like he didn't really care about that. So then they get to this other village. They travel again, and she's pregnant. Okay? And they were going to talk about setting up a missionary station there. But when they got there, their host died of fever like 2 days after they got there. And Livingstone decided this would not be a good place to set up a mission because of the abundance of fever in the area.
I don't think that's how that works, but okay.
Right, I mean, it happens. But he's like, also, we're very close to the Zambezi River, and I would like to see that. So he leaves his wife and children in the place with all the fever and travels 100 miles away so he can go see the Zambezi River. Dingus. Now, in 1852, he finally smartens up and sends them back so the kids can go to school. But they're basically destitute when they get back there because Dad's off gallivanting around Africa. Thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So.
Wait, so is there money in missionary work in Africa at this point?
No.
No, okay.
No, okay.
But.
So basically, the missionary societies, sometimes the government, it seemed like, would fund you. From what I understand, and like I said, this was a lot. And I'm embarrassed to say that the 1800s are kind of my jam. I didn't know hardly anything about this. And yeah, I just didn't.
I think it's a new area of subject for. I mean, of all the people in our house, Ethan is the one that's the most fascinated.
Yeah.
With that particular area, with all of Africa, really. I mean, his bucket list is like multiple places in Africa. You've always seemed to favor Civil War and American history during that time. History, So, yeah. I mean, it's not terribly surprising, but yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, from what I understand, sometimes governments would kind of fund your mission trip, but also insofar as like, hey, you can just go ahead and plant a flag there too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
do a flag. Thank you, Eddie Izzard.
Anyway.
No country can't have one.
So, in 1855, Livingstone goes on to discover Victoria Falls, which
no one had ever seen before.
Nobody had ever seen it before in his whole life, and that's certainly why it wasn't already named. And I'm going to mess up the name. It was Mosai Oatunya, which means smoke that thunders. So
that's actually a cooler name than Victoria Falls.
It absolutely is. But Victoria Falls, he named it after Queen Victoria. Yeah.
Which I'm sure she's a badass queen, but I'm still going with Smoke the Thunders.
That was a much better name. Yeah.
I mean, if Instagram had been back then, they definitely would have voted for Smoke the Thunders.
Yeah. And then the other thing that he did is he's also credited with seeing Lake Nagami for the first time. And apparently this is funny. So in one of the books, it talked about how in the newspapers where they printed, like, what are those called? Like etchings of him discovering, quote unquote, Lake Nagami. Like, him and his people are, like, standing on the shore of the lake, with their hands on their hips. Woo, we discovered this whole thing.
Superman pose, right?
Right, yeah. And there's, like, natives on the lake fishing in canoes. Like, oh, yeah.
Well, thank God Dr. Livingstone found it, so they could all then start using it. Yeah. Area unlocked.
Oh, all right. So this
goes back to the systemic racism we were talking about. Right, okay, great. All right.
In 1856, he was looking for new trade routes, and was credited with being the first European to cross the width of Africa, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we talk, I'm going to throw in some place names. But to be honest, there was a lot of place names in the books. And for a podcast, like, obviously I want to tell you about these places. But they have all now changed names multiple times because of all the warring and everything going on in Africa.
Yep.
And, like, the shapes of the countries, the names of everything has changed. So basically I'm going to tell you that generally when these guys were doing this, they would go from England, go down through the Suez Canal, and land on the east side of Africa at Zanzibar, which is like an island. And then they'd travel from east to west across Africa.
Okay.
Which kind of threw me, because for some reason, like, in my head when I was picturing it, until I looked at a map, I was thinking they'd land on the west and go east. But no, they went through the Suez Canal.
You'd have to go all the way down.
Down, and yeah.
I want to say, is that Cape Horn? Or is that South America?
Yeah, I don't know.
We suck at geography. No, keep going. Yeah.
Ask Ethan. Okay. So, he was the first European to cross Africa. 1857, his book Missionary Travels is published in England, and it makes him super famous. Like, to the point that his face is on matchbooks and, weirdly enough, umbrella handles and things like that.
Umbrella?
Umbrella handles. He had a racehorse named after him.
I'm wrong. Cape Horn is South America.
Cape Horn, is it Cape Hope? I don't remember. Cape Horn is South America.
But it's nighttime on Google Map, which is kind of cool.
It is nighttime, and it is...
Cape Town?
No, that's the...
Well, it is there, but yes, I don't know what that place is called.
All right.
Straits of Gibraltar, we'll call it. No, I'm just kidding.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to tell you, he was super famous in 1857, made a little money because of his book, Missionary Travels. In 1858, he set out on a Zanzibar expedition to see basically if British trade would work on the river. They were going on the Zambezi. It was backed by the government, but it didn't really work out because, like, he kept hitting rapids that he couldn't get through. He kept hitting rapids that he couldn't get through. Apparently, the men he had in his employ were not being extraordinarily nice to the native people. And get this.
Yeah, what's up?
What are you looking at?
AI gives me an incredibly wrong answer. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, surprise. Okay, so in 1862, his wife came out to join him on this one.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, by this time, there are many reports that she was an alcoholic at this time, because who wouldn't be married to that man? Sorry. I picture being
Are you
pregnant.
projecting? Do we need to go to counseling here?
Oh,
Good Lord.
You make me travel 1,500 miles across the desert. Anyway, she came out to join him. She was apparently an alcoholic, but she died on that journey of malaria. So he lost his wife, yeah. So, after that, his oldest son, this is kind of a footnote to the footnote of this history, okay? His oldest son was named Robert. And Robert set out for Cape Town to find his dad. There are debates about how hard he tried to find his dad.
It doesn't have a name.
Okay.
That's why I can't find it. Anyway, sorry, Robert, Dad.
Robert went to find Dad. Debates on how hard he tried. But in Cape Town, he gave up and said, oh, can't find Dad. So he signed on to be like a shipmate and went to America as a shipmate. Changed his name to Rupert Vincent. And then he found himself in Boston. And I read like a couple different versions that he was somehow forced into service of the Union Army. Because we're in the Civil War right now. He finds himself in Boston. And so some reports were that people paid him to be a substitute for them in the Civil War. Other reports were that like this gang just kind of kidnapped him and was like, you're in the army now. But one way or the other, he got signed up for the Union Army. In his first battle, he was captured and then promptly was killed in a prison riot in 1864 at a POW camp. So...
Okay, so if we're playing along at home, Dr. Livingstone is AWOL.
Mm-hmm.
Molly Moffat is dead.
She died. Mary Moffat died of malaria. Oldest son Robert
killed in a POW camp. So
in the American Civil War.
Right. Sure, it makes sense.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So eventually, Livingstone returns to England, expecting, excitement and things about his travels this time, but he is not a popular man when he gets back to England.
What happened?
Well, what happened was, in his book, The Missionary Travels, and the lectures and things that he did after, he basically was telling everyone how great Africa was and how friendly the people were and how it's your mission to go mission to these people and yada, 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 kind of glossing over the fact that, like most white people that go to Africa, die of like dysentery, malaria, fever, and awfulness. And so a bunch of churches apparently got expeditions together to go mission in Africa, and they all died. So when he gets back to England, everybody's like, you didn't tell us that part, man.
Well, they wouldn't have gone if he would have told them that part.
Exactly. Like, now all of our friends and family are dead. So he was not super popular. And then in 1866, he decides to return to Africa.
London, not as much fun as he was hoping.
Right. Well, and you really get the sense when you're reading these books that these guys, it kind of reminded me of our son, Ethan, actually. Like, way more comfortable in the woods. Like, they'd be much happier fighting.
Who's they in this case? I mean, obviously Livingstone, but is this other guy going to be that way? Or
yes, Stanley was the same way. A lot of the guys that went down to explore Africa, you get the feeling that they'd rather be battling natives and dysentery than, like, speaking in public and meeting the queen. Like, dysentery was much easier for them to handle. Like, they just wanted to be away from people. It's kind of, what I mean? Because it's, like, characteristic. They all, like, go back, think they're going to be famous. Maybe they are famous. And then after a year or so, they're like, and we're done. We want to go back into the woods.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So, in 1866, Livingstone returns to Africa, and this time, what he wants to do is to find the source of the Nile, because nobody ever
found the source of the Nile before.
Okay, so in this case, from what I was reading, apparently even the Africans didn't really know where it came from. Like, people would travel up, and there was a mix of, like, lakes and streams and tributaries, and even still today, I was like, what's the source of the Nile? And there's, like, 2 different sources listed. So apparently it was not an easy feat that you would think it would be. So he returns to go searching for the source of the Nile, and this is when he, quote, disappears. So he had a lot of issues with people deserting him. So the way they would travel, it wasn't like Stanley and his 5 English friends just go travel through Africa. They do, but they have to take all this equipment. So they hire native Africans, and they have groups of like 400 people traipsing through the forest.
These expeditions are huge.
Yeah, they're huge expeditions. So he had a lot of issues with people deserting. And then to cover for themselves, some of the people that deserted when they got back to like their villages or whatever were like, oh, we didn't desert. He totally died. So reports made it back to England that Livingstone was dead.
Also, like our son. Totally see him doing that. You come home early from work? No, everyone died. Really? Everybody but you? Yeah. Okay.
But it was proved a few months later that he was still alive. But he did have issues. He was very sick. I mean, like I said, people that went there, they had no resistance to this stuff.
Right.
Growing up in Wales and England and Scotland, they had no resistance to any of this. So a lot of times they were very sick. They were very low on supplies. He had a lot of his men desert him. And he finally fell in with some Arab slave traders. Now,
jeez.
Let me just be clear that Livingstone was always against the slave trade.
I mean, you would hope if he's going to be a missionary. And
Like, part of his mission was he wanted to abolish slavery. Like, he was super abolitionist. Did not like it, always spoke out against it.
Must have been awkward when he's hanging out with a bunch of Arab slave traders.
Right, but at that point, like, it was like, you're going to hang out with these guys or you're going to die because you have no food left. Right. So he ended up hanging out with some Arab slave traders. But they knew his reputation, and they would not let him send letters because they didn't want it getting out, like, where they were operating. Like, they didn't want Livingstone telling people, like, hey, I'm with these Arab slave traders, and they've got this many slaves coming to this port.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right. So they would not let him talk about it. So everyone thought he had disappeared. Nobody knew what happened.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how, like, does the Pony Express go up to the source of the Nile? How are they sending letters
They make the letters make it back. There were quite a few, like
people going both directions or whatever?
Some, but the Arab slave traders, this was a whole other thing I didn't know. The Arab slave traders had been operating there for a very long time. Like, I want to say centuries, but don't quote me on that. It may have been, like, century. And, we don't ever learn about that stuff here, but they had, like, full towns set up. Like, the
slaver bases, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But they talk about some of them in the books, and they're, like, these big, beautiful, like, towns, like English towns. Obviously, they don't look like English towns. They look more like a town you'd find, like, in Saudi Arabia or whatever. But they had full towns and full trade routes and mail back and forth, and all sorts of stuff was going on.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew slavery happened. And, you hear stories about how the American boats would pick up the slaves and come to America and sell. But I never really thought about, like, the workings in Africa, like, how that all worked.
Gotcha.
And by this time, slavery, well, as we get later, slavery's outlawed in England and in America. And I looked up a map to see where slavery was still happening. Looked like it was still very much happening, obviously, in on the Arabian Peninsula.
Right.
China, and then some of the island countries like Cuba, the Dominican, places like that.
I see.
And the interesting thing on this map that I found when I looked it up is it had the whole world kind of color-coded by when they gave up slavery. You want to guess what one of the very first countries to give up slavery was? In like the 1700s. They outlawed slavery.
France?
Nope. One more guess.
Nigeria?
Russia.
Really?
Peter the Great.
Huh.
Yeah, right? I was surprised.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I talking about?
How involved the settlements were.
So they had way to get mail back.
Okay, got it.
Is what we were talking.
Yes.
So people thought Livingstone had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so somebody needed to go find him. And that eventually was going to become...
Why did they need to go find him? Why did they weren't they just like, dead?
He was basically like a celebrity at this point, and people wanted to
even though they hated him.
Yeah, it kind of went in waves.
So he's like Gordon Ramsay. He's really popular, but a lot of people don't like him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it was like a big mystery, you know? Like, people were like, what happened to him? You know, we gotta go find him. So, that's why they, quote, had to go find him.
Okay.
Okay, so pause that story for a minute.
Okay, pause.
Now we're going to talk about Henry Morton Stanley. This man's, okay? Like, I thought Dr. Livingstone would be the most interesting. No.
Okay.
Henry Morton Stanley, he had an insane life. A life which I feel very bad about him for. Okay? He also wrote books, and you're going to say, why, Tina? Why didn't you read his book?
Hey, Tina, why didn't you read his biography then?
The man was a compulsive liar. So, absolutely compulsive liar. So the book that I read, this Dark Safari book, basically took excerpts of his book, and we're like, well, these two sentences are true, but if you actually look at the birth records and the dates and this is what actually happened. Okay?
Okay.
So he was a compulsive liar. Which is easily explained when you hear about this man's childhood. Okay, so this man, he's born January 28th, 1841 in Denbigh, Wales. So he's Welsh. Okay. Mom was a lady named Betsy Perry. She was supposedly a housemaid, maybe a prostitute. Unknown?
Maybe both.
Maybe both,
okay,
yeah. Dad, nobody really knows. John Rowlands is listed on his birth certificate, but there's some thought that Betsy may have just paid him to say you're the dad so that she didn't look as bad not knowing the dad. But Henry Morton Stanley was also named John Rowlands. That was his real name, John Rowlands. And his dad was supposedly John Rowlands, who was basically just a town drunk. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
He's literally entered into the town records as John Rowlands - bastard. And immediately, Mom didn't want him and sent him to live with her dad and his two unmarried sons. So he goes to live with Grandpa and two uncles. Okay, by all accounts, that was an all right time.
Okay.
But Grandpa was old, and when he died, John, at this point, we'll just call him Henry. That way it's not so...
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Henry was 5. The brothers sent him to live with this other family called the Prices, because the brothers were like, I don't want a 5-year-old.
How old were they?
Older. I don't know for sure, but from the way it read, they were probably in their late 20s, 30s-ish, probably. But they were like, we don't need a 5-year-old hanging around here. So they sent him to live with this family called the Price family, and basically paid the Price family a set amount every month to take care of this kid. Well, the Price family was like, all right, as the kid is growing up, he's eating more. We need more money. And they were an elderly couple. But the brothers wouldn't give them more money or take him back.
Okay.
Now, this is where things get real rough for this poor child.
Oh, this is where it gets rough. Okay.
So, the Prices had their adult son take little Henry, who was, I believe, 9 at this time, like old enough to know what was going on. And this man told little Henry, he's like, hey, we found one of your aunts. We're going to go visit your aunt. You want to go see your aunt? And Henry's like, sure, we'll go see my aunt. And he's like, your life is going to be great when you go live with your aunt, da 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 da. So they walk together for like miles. And they get to this stone house. And this adult son, I don't know his name, rang the doorbell of this house.
Rang the doorbell?
Uh-huh. Of the house. Oh, okay. So knocked on the door.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, knocked on the door.
Okay.
And then the door opened and he pushed little Henry inside and said, I'm going to go get your aunt. Bye. Turns out it was a workhouse and he just dropped him off and left him there.
I see.
Poor kid. This poor baby. So you know why he has issues with the truth and self-esteem from here on out, okay? So, beyond that, there are multiple grains of evidence. We're going to talk about this once, and I don't want to concentrate on it, but it did seem to be a somewhat important part of the story, okay? There are little bits of evidence throughout his life that he was perhaps abused at the workhouse.
Okay.
You know.
I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, okay,
yes.
yeah.
And that he was perhaps gay.
Okay.
Okay. And so this is a recurring theme in the one book I read. There's no way to know for sure, and it's one of those things, like, you read about all these historical figures, and nowadays everybody's like, they were all gay.
Yeah,
you know?
But so the bottom line is things were not good for
things
little
were not
Henry.
good at this
So
workhouse.
describe real quick workhouse. What's that? I mean,
so it was basically it was basically like, if you could not afford to live, you would go to a workhouse. And if you were kids, you'd go to the workhouse, like, without parents, like
right, orphans, yeah.
But even, there's one story where a couple years into his life at the workhouse, the, like, headmaster comes over and he goes, do you see that lady over there? And Henry's like, yeah. And the headmaster's like, well, do you recognize her? And he's like, no. It's a lady with a new baby. It's his mother.
Oh, wow.
His mom shows up at the workhouse and he, I guess, went to say hello, and she was just like, what do you want? You know, like, no, nothing. So adults could come to the workhouse too if they needed kind of.
So, but I guess it'd be kind of like you do manual labor.
You do manual labor in return for some subpar boarding and subpar food. It's enough to live.
To live,
but it's not great. Got it. And they did, for the kids, they did have a bit of a school. He did get somewhat of an education.
So there. Letters, right? You know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in 1856, little Henry leaves the workhouse. He found his paternal grandparents. They said, hello, who are you? I'm your grandkid. Shut the door. Bye. They were like, we can't afford you. Bye. And then tried his uncles. Finally went to a school where his cousin was teaching and got a job as a teacher. Eventually he was kicked out and lived with his Aunt Mary for a bit. And then to a different uncle in Liverpool, but nobody could afford to keep him. So he just bounced around trying to find family, work, anything.
So he decides to go to Africa.
Nope, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now he was working for this Uncle Tom guy running errands. Yeah, I know that's kind of.
Yeah,
ironic.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway.
It's a history podcast. I have to laugh a little bit, yeah.
Had to run an errand to the dock at one point. And the guys on the dock were like, you want a job? Get on a boat. And so he is like, fine, let's go to America. So he takes a job, gets on a boat. It docks at New Orleans. And he abandoned ship there. And in his autobiography, okay, he talks about how he met this man named Henry Hope Stanley. And how Stanley was this great merchant in New Orleans and took him under his wing and basically adopted him. And then when he died 2 years later, left his fortunes to Henry Morton Stanley, you know, and said, please take my name and yada, yada, yada. That's the story from Stanley. The book I'm reading says, actually, he may have known who Henry Hope Stanley was. Yeah. Maybe met him, maybe didn't. Okay. And, oh, by the way, Henry Hope Stanley lived like another 50 years and none of that ever actually happened. So Henry Morton Stanley just kind of took on his name because he thought it sounded important.
But did he come away with a fortune?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Like I say, if he all of a sudden had money, that would make the story far more interesting. What do you mean he abandoned ship, though? Like he
had signed on to be... So, apparently, I read this about Robert Livingstone and about Henry Morton Stanley. So, basically, apparently what would happen is these guys in England would get these kids, young adults, whoever, to work the ship.
Gotcha.
They would purposely abuse the heck out of them on the way from England to America, so that when these kids got to America, they had no desire to keep working on the ship.
And didn't collect their pay.
And just ran off into America. So it sounded like it was basically just a way that kind of everybody knew you could get free passage over there, but you weren't going to end up working on a ship long term. And when you wanted to go back to England, you'd get work on a ship headed for England and then abandon ship there. Does that make sense?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. All right. That's a lot. I'm tired. We're already at 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So should we continue talking about Stanley and then stop the episode and then do a second parter?
Sure.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So little Henry is now in
America.
He's
living the high life with his adopted father, Morgan Hope Stanley, which is awesome for him.
Yep. Now he finds himself in Arkansas.
Less awesome for no. I like Arkansas, just fine.
And falls in love with this woman named Margaret Gorey. Margaret, whatever, is a fine lady. But the Civil War is going on. Okay? And everybody is being pressed into service of the Civil War. And Stanley's kind of like, I am from Wales. I don't care. Like, I don't want to be in your Civil War.
Can you do that in a Welsh accent, though?
No, I cannot. But he has a crush on this lady who mails him a package that has petticoats and a chemise in it. And basically like, oh, are you a girl? You're a girly girl. You don't want to join the war. You girly girl.
Oh, I thought, okay. Well,
yeah.
That's not where I thought we were going with the story. I thought he actually put him on so that
no.
so that he could avoid being assaulted.
No, like she totally guilted him into joining the Confederate Army. So
I love you, but I don't know that I would fight in another country's civil war. It's because you taunted me. I don't know.
I know. So he enlisted, and his first battle...
He got captured and got sent to a POW camp?
His first battle was Shiloh.
Oh, good Lord.
And yes, he was captured and went to a prison camp in Illinois.
That sucks.
Yeah, and at the prison camp in Illinois, apparently they were like, well, if you'd like to fight for the Union Army, we'll let you out. And he lasted 6 weeks before he's finally like, this sucks. I'm in. I'm going to fight for the Union.
So nobody was like, your accent, you're not from Arkansas, are you?
So now he's signed up to fight for the Union Army. But on his way to the next battle, he got dysentery, almost died. And when he was well enough to even walk a little bit, the army was like, okay, bye. We can't afford to keep taking care of you. Bye. And he walks 9 miles and finds himself at this farm.
With nothing but a petticoat and a chemise to keep him warm.
No. Okay. Where he was nursed back to health by this loving family. And then he's like, when he was better, he's like, all right, thank you very much. I'm going to head to Baltimore. So he goes to Baltimore. And now, in 1863, he joins the U.S. Navy.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But while he's on this Navy ship, he meets this kid. What was his name? Edward Noe, maybe? Noe? This kid is a baby. He's like 15. And Stanley's like, you think I'm cool, right? And the kid's like, yeah, you're awesome. He's like, cool, let's desert. So they jump ship and go AWOL from the Navy.
Were they at least near land when they did this? Okay, all right.
So this kid's parents convince him to do the right thing and go back and do this stuff. And Stanley just doesn't. He decides to head west. He gets a job as a freelance writer for the Missouri Democrat in St. Louis.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And he traveled west sending stories back. He decided that wasn't adventurous enough, and him and his two friends decided to travel around the world, starting in Turkey. And they convinced this poor little kid, Edward No, to go with them. I think his name was Edward, but his last name was definitely No. So they convinced this kid to go with them. And while they're in Turkey, they get in trouble and get, arrested. And he, makes this bargain to get out of prison and leaves No and the other guy back still in prison. And eventually they make deals to get out. And they get back to America, and Stanley gets back to America, and everything's fine. And then he'll just, show up. He'll just write letters to this No kid. Hey, how's it going? And this kid's like, you left me in a prison in Turkey. And so, for the rest of his life, he's still writing to this kid, nothing happened. This guy, man. Okay, so now he goes back to St. Louis and became the reporter covering the State House in Jeff City. And then he gets promoted as a special envoy to follow the Winfield Scott Hancock expedition to basically go pacify the Plains Indians. And he meets Wild Bill Hickok on that journey.
Oh, that's cool.
So, bonus.
Now, I like how that's the highlight of the trip, not the pacification of the Indians. But hey, right. He met a celebrity. Woo! Okay, anyway, yeah.
So then, he wanted to work for a bigger newspaper. So then he travels to St. Louis, to New York, and convinces the editor of the Herald to pay for his expedition to Africa to go find Livingstone. Okay? Okay. So, I told you, this is an insane story.
Okay.
So, we're going to leave it there for now. And when we come back, we will talk about what happened next. Okay?
Sure.
Are you ready? Can you wait that long?
I suppose. I guess I'm going to have to, right?
All right. Well, we will see you next time for part 2 about Livingstone and Henry Morton Stanley.
Yeah.